This is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to Show X Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado.
Hey, wait a second. I'm on the show too, and I don't get any billing at all? Well, I know how to solve this. Soldater, Fremad, March! You're listening to Show X with our favorite Scotsman Ken, our child of the corn Wayne, currently living in Colorado, and Todd, who now has an army of angry Norwegians at his back. Enjoy the show!
Hello everybody. So, unlike much what that intro just kind of told us, no, today it is just me. The boys are out and about doing various important tasks, and so I figured I would kick on today to say hello. Today is not going to be an official episode. I say that because officially our next episode is episode 500, and we wanted to make sure all of us were here to help talk through, celebrate, and be a participant in that. So instead, you're just going to have me talk a little bit about whatever is off the cuff and on my mind. And we'll see if we go a whole 2 hours with this or not, or if I just kind of, if I throw in the towel early, since admittedly I knew this was coming, but I haven't really set up a whole prepped show for it to say, what am I doing on this solo Wayne's World edition? In addition to that, admittedly, as I look, I think nobody else is watching on Twitch yet. So this may just be me, and that's okay. But if nobody else kicks on, this will probably be a shorter stream than not. First thing I wanted to get into today was kind of a follow-up on last week's show, where we talked a bit about why we like the games we like. Because while we, in the time that it took us all to kind of explain what it was we were enjoying about the various video games that we were playing, we each only really spent time by ourselves, or each of us on one game and one thing we each enjoy. So I wanted to get into a couple just other things I've come to realize about myself and about the way I like to play video games, and share those along as well. So last week I focused primarily on Call of Duty Warzone. And with Warzone, I had mentioned that I love FPSs and everything like that, and I won't rehash the whole thing, but the competitive aspect and things like that. Well, I do realize there are other multiplayer games that I quite enjoy, and that I still spend time playing after all of these years, decades, so plus, some of them. And the one I wanted to bring up primarily was League of Legends. And so I think I might have mentioned it just briefly last week. But one of the things that really focused me, I still play League of Legends usually a couple times a week. It is one of those games, top-down RTS-style games that, for me, provides a nice, quick, competitive, not versus the AI, but versus real people kind of gameplay that can make it, for me, exciting and different and new every time I touch a game. And it's something that I guess I just kind of feel, in many ways, not 100%, but comfortable and used to the game. I say this, huge caveat, that when I play League of Legends, it's pretty much me just playing ARAMs, the all-random, all-mid mode, because it takes away all of the individual laning phase of the regular 5-man Summoner's Rift match, and it focuses on the 5v5 team fight aspect of the game, single lane, towers, creeps, nexus, and that's pretty much it. And I like not only just the lane aspect of it, the single lane, I also like the randomness. It provides several elements of unique for each time you play the game. You never know what combination of champs your team itself will get, what you yourself will get, what your opponents will have. No idea. In doing so, you often get a variation in people's playstyles with champions that they are more or less comfortable with. And I think that all adds to some of the random aspects of what it is to play in a multiplayer game. League of Legends, unlike, in my opinion, the like Warzone, where you just have your 1 to 4 man squad with various weapons. In League, each of your champs has very different abilities, skills, ways of play. And so, because they can each play certain roles, because they have certain abilities, things that do more damage, things that CC, bind, and such like that, the kind of like stack of different elements from both team comps really makes, for me, almost every experience, every match unique. Now, that can be extended out to the regular game, to Summoner's Rift. Same kind of concept, except there you tend to get a little bit more selection. You get to choose your champs. There's some levels of picks and bans, depending on the mode you're playing, to restrict some play, but also to allow you a pretty wide variety of wanting to choose your team comp, such that you can come up with ones that work well. In ARAM, there's a limited aspect of that where you're allowed to re-roll whatever champ you have, and if you have enough re-rolls saved up, as they regenerate over a number of matches in time, you can go twice. And the nice thing is then each time you roll a champ, it goes in the top bar, which makes it so that champ is still available for someone on the team to play. So if one of your teammates rolls a champ and therefore whatever champ they had when they hit the reroll goes into a selection bar that anyone on the team can select from. So it does give you a chance to still adjust which champ you may play, even though it's primarily random. I like that it gives you a little bit of choice, because there are a lot of times which whatever random champ I get is definitely not in my wheelhouse, not my favorite, not my playstyle, things like that, and I'd like to be, useful for the team. And so I can often fill by looking at what champs are available and seeing if perhaps we need a little more tank frontline, a little more DPS, ADC, magic damage, any specific type of role or playstyle in the game. So I like that it has that flexibility. And so those are all draws to me. I like the time limits, or the kind of average time you play in a game. I say it's a range, and it's bigger than some. It's longer in many cases than a Warzone game might be for me. But in an ARAM, it can go anywhere from, I think I've had some of the fastest games around 15 minutes. There's some exceptions to the rule that are even faster than that. But in the long range, all the way out to over an hour. However, I'd say the average ARAM for me is somewhere in about half hour to 40 minutes. And for me, that's consumable. I kind of know I can look at a clock and say I've got about this much time to play, jump into a game or two, and really have a good time. Other than that, in a different aspect from like Warzone or some of the other multiplayer games I'll play, I'm comfortable enough with the way an ARAM plays that I don't need to have voice comms with other players on my team. They have a good enough ping system in the game that you can pretty much do everything you need just from your keyboard to communicate with members of the team around you what your intentions are and what maybe you should all do together, such that actual voice chat is one of the less important aspects of the game. And for me, that makes it just even more accessible, as well as a big draw to that is it makes it so that I have less concern or worry or whatever about needing to find or play with people I know. I am actually okay with the concept of a completely random group of people playing together. I have less expectation of how good everyone on the team will be. I feel a little less concerned about how well I may play. Now, that's not to say that I don't want to win, or not to say that I don't care how I play. I do. I want to perform well, and I don't want to let my team down. And so I always try to play my best. However, like one of the last matches I did, I got a random champ that I've never seen before. Never played against, never played as. And it's not necessarily the most advisable thing to do, because you often will not be all that great with a brand new champ. They have uniqueness to all of their abilities, to their most optimal builds for loadouts and stuff for the various weapons, armor, and items that you might carry. And there's some real keen nuances to the combos that every character has. It's what way do you want to tie together your abilities for the maximum effect. And what is the effect you're trying to cause with each hero that you're playing. And with this character I was playing, I forget her name. She rides a horse, and you can leap off of it as a pop-up ability. It allows you to dash forward, then leap off, and it pops everyone up that you hit with it, doing some little damage. She carries a lance that lets her strike through. She gets to tie her armor to a teammate, and her ult allows everything to get pulled into her. Now, the challenge is, again, a brand new champ for me, not knowing the build or the thing. Thankfully, I use a utility that some might say is a bit of a, I don't know if it's a cheat or just, it's almost like me being a little lazy about my builds because I don't play it competitively and with a whole lot of like, I need to win. But it allows, I play with blitz.gg, BLITZ, which is an add-on that looks at your team, your character, the opponents, and it recommends, I think primarily just off your own character and what the majority of community members, other players do with that character, recommended build. And now this is kind of just an add-on and a take on it compared to what League of Legends has built into it, where it has its own system that the developers have come up with, recommended items, and a way to go through so that even somebody new could get an effective enough build to use the character. And they do a great job of doing little suggestions of 3 potential item builds you can do each time you come in for a full like stack of how much money you might need. Such that, and they do a great suggestion piece of saying this is effective, and they look at your opponents primarily against this character, this character, this character. They kind of give you some advice as to who are you trying to counter or kill, or what situation you might be dealing with, and therefore which item you may want to go to. Now, this leads me to not just the why of the game itself, of League, but I want to get into some of the uniqueness of it over other games that I've played in the genre. Things like Heroes of the Storm, things like, I'm going to say, the other, Crud, the original Warcraft mod that everyone did, Defense of the Ancients, Dota 2, and where it's at. I've talked about them in the past, and for me, all of the other battle arena games like League of Legends, the MOBAs, mobile online battle arenas, are none of the others to me compared to League. League is no question one of the largest of the MOBA style games out there. But primarily for me, and this comes from when it first launched, I think they've had this, Riot Games had it and continued development and how they continue to make it better and keep it up to date, is that it has one of the best UIs I've ever run into, as well as they took a lot of time, in my opinion, to get rid of or adjust a lot of the mechanisms from the grandfathered in games like Defense of the Ancients that could be considered very difficult gameplay elements that are very challenging to new players, that people who have experience can really punish newer players. And I believe like Defense of the Ancients has a huge snowball effect that once you start losing, you just will continue to lose, and in more brutal ways going forward, because of the way you can deny gold and experience stuff like that to enemy teammates such that they can seemingly never progress. So not only that, while Defense of the Ancients has a very specific, like high resolution, beautiful kind of view off of it with the newer engine that Blizzard provides, at the same time, I believe it kind of becomes a challenge because every game you play, one of the things we've talked about and why I love gameplay design and how I think it influences and has a great study for how humans process information, is that games, unlike a lot of other things that we interface digitally around us, the designers have to focus on the user interface, the UI. And one of the things, a couple of the things they're trying to accomplish with the UI is ensure that all of the information a player or person needs at a given time is available to them in as obvious a way as possible to provide maximum contextual information so they understand what it is they're seeing, why they're seeing it, why it's important. And as I like to talk about, actionable information, meaning putting information in front of their face that allows them to make decisions to affect change in what they're about to do and what their environment is. And I believe Riot with League of Legends have been masters of what good UI design is. And beyond just the user interface for like your health bar or the map itself and like the little mini map and things like that, theirs goes all the way down through the entire game design for the look and feel. Where Riot with League of Legends chose a much more cartoonish view of the world versus high detail and very accurate to like real world material type textures and colors and things, to instead defer to bright, vibrant colors with biggish, cartoonish designs that have very obvious things to tell a user or a gamer what it is they need to do. Examples being the character design. You can pretty quickly, even though League of Legends arguably has a ridiculously large character roster, it is a big part of how they continue to make income, that every character has a unique silhouette, such that just their character model, the shape of them, the weapons they carry, things like that, make them fairly unique and easy to observe who that character is, so you can quickly identify. As well as, and this is kind of amazing because even though characters now also have so many various visual skins, ways of changing the look of the character, that it makes the challenge even more significant. Because with over 140 characters, each one having multiple skins, if I think an average today might be 5 skins a character, some newer ones have less, some older ones have more. But if you look at that alone, you're talking about the UI developers having to deal with over 600 like tweaks on characters and having to make sure they all still provide enough uniqueness so that they don't run over each other. Not every time it's been successful. There's some models and some of the various costumes I've seen characters wear that are kind of tough. They're kind of tough to differentiate between each other. But another element that makes it a little easier is that the abilities cast by each character also have unique effects and visualizations and timing and things like that, enough so to also be able to help identify what's happening and what characters are doing. Are they all perfect? No. I've absolutely seen some of those abilities and things, and especially mixed with certain skins. In fact, it's one of the little kind of pro-ish moves you might do in the game, is choosing specifically skins that have less obvious effects. I know I choose Morgana, and she has a ghost skin that makes some of her casting blend a little bit better with the background, especially her ground-based attacks and AoEs. It's such that a enemy team may miss where exactly an ability is being cast and might walk through it and take damage. So there are some that, if you're really focused on, you can use some of the UI elements to your benefit, but it's not outrageous, and I don't think it happens a ton. It's not like I forget the champ's name in Warzone, that's still, I think, problematic. The female champ that has, or a female soldier you can choose that has a all black skin, basically all black, I forget what the suit's called, but it's like black leather over everything, including the face, such that if you're in a dark environment with that skin in Warzone, it can be very difficult to see you, more so than pretty much every other skin in the game. It's similar to wearing a ghillie suit in a bush, can make it harder for you to see. I forget her name, but that one still in my monitor when I play is, I'd say, a bit OP. Like, I have watched replays and stuff and watched things where somebody came out and I did not see them until they were right in front of me or shooting me because of that skin. So thankfully League doesn't have anything I think that's that bad, but there are a couple problematic skins in it that do give a person potential advantage for how things blend. But overall, the UI design's wonderful in League. The character design's great. Again, the abilities and stuff you see, you can really process information quickly. The ping system, where you can just add a click of a mouse and a slight scroll to a side in one of the cardinal directions, you can convey information to your team about your intentions or what you see in the world and how they should perhaps process that information to say if they need to worry about other enemies or retreat or attack or things like that, or hey, we need to target the tower versus creeps or heroes and stuff like that. So I really give League a ton of credit for creating one of the best UIs in an RTS that I've seen, or at least the MOBA style ones. I really think they did a great job. Like I said, the maps, all of that works well. Sounds and things like that are great. They do a bunch of extra little just bonus that makes it kind of a good game. I mean, a lot of people argue that League is not a great MOBA, or even that MOBAs in general can be a challenging place to play games and type of game. My response to that tends to be that a lot of the people I've seen, they say it's bad because of the community and the people you run into. And I will agree that if you play like Summoner's Rift, especially the ranked modes, that can be tough because people are going in there wanting to win, knowing and having expectations on the way everyone else should play the game and the characters they're playing and things like that. And so I've seen people who, when they don't believe or don't feel that someone else is performing to their standard, can express that in pretty harsh, toxic, ways that aren't friendly, aren't nice, is kind of... And so I agree that any multi-competitive, especially multiplayer game experience for almost any game, you could run into that. And that can suck, right? That's no fun. But it happens. So I can't say that it doesn't have that. It absolutely does, and it can be terrible. But that's why I play ARAMs. I don't get into the competitive side. I may, again, at some point. I have a lot of people who are intrigued by it and do play it, who want to play with me, and so I could probably give them some time. I'm not as trash at the regular Summoner's Rift game as I think I am, I believe. Because when I do play, I play enough ARAMs, I can usually perform with a character. My challenges are knowing where in the pace of the game I am. Because in ARAMs, it's obvious. You're just going down the lane, taking stuff out. Ebb and flow, very straightforward. In Summoner's Rift, there's other factors, the jungle, the river, where people pair up, the different pairings, and an understanding of when to forgo or give up your lane or when to press your lane versus when your character and your force may be better used in a group fight or in another lane or something like that to support others and try to overall progress all three lanes and to win the match. That's the part of the game I haven't kept up with. And so I do feel an intimidation factor when it comes into like, oh crud, I need to be a better player for the benefit of us winning and the team, or I need to understand this. So I tend not to put myself in that situation, and I don't play ranked. I say that when Riot came out with their mobile version of the game with Wild Rift, which I think does a good job of, again, UI, as well as they added the control aspects of being able to do it through a touch interface on your phone. But when they did it in Wild Rift, they kind of force you into the 5-man game, even though it's not ranked, to start off until they open up enough of the game, you level up enough to play everything, which is what regular League does as well. But I've just been so far past that, it's been a while since I was forced to. And something about the touch interface and on the phone made it less stressful for me to play the 5-man game, I guess. I still prefer the ARAMs, but I was able to find myself playing it on the phone, on the mobile version, and doing all right, not hating it. So I feel like I should give it another shot on regular desktop League of Legends. I should check that out again. Oh well, we'll see. Anyhow, that is a big part of what I like about League compared to some of the others. I feel like ones like Heroes of the Storm try to dumb things down too much. And so I struggle with when I played it, it's just the way everybody got to level up together no matter what, so any scrub could be carried along. That took it a little too far for me for making it ease of use or something, so I never felt like the draw to it. And yeah, Earth, the same thing. Like, remembering the last time I actually did a true 5-man's, kind of rough. I have some other people I know who play them who, when I see them online, are like, hey, and I'm the one who's like, okay, we'll come play an ARAM with you. And I feel like I should, they're generous enough to give me some of their time in the mode I prefer, that I should probably try to give back a bit and say, okay, I can play in your guys' mode, we can play together. I just always try to caveat it with, but I'll be terrible, just so you know. Also, Earth, since you're on there, and I don't know if anyone else has shown up to watch today, you are welcome to call into the show if you'd like to chat along, depending on how busy you are and if you've got a good mic and camera setup going right now. But Up to you. I think I can probably keep talking through and get content out for the whole show, but I'm kind of just chilling. And since I didn't pour myself a proper drink and I just have water, yeah, we'll see. All right. I think a follow-on to the League conversation should probably be regular RTSs and Supreme Commander. I bring this one up because RTSs, real-time strategies, right? These have been around for a minute, ever since the Command and Conquer days. Classics like Age of Empire, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that are around, from kind of growing up over the time that I experienced them all. But for me, I will tell you, I've enjoyed most. I didn't get into Age of Empires a ton, but I did play through all the Command and Conquer Red Alerts and things like that. I played through like Warcrafts and those and really loved them. And then all of a sudden this game came out, and I should probably look up like the original developers and such, but called Total Annihilation. And essentially it was all that the other RTSs were, but they took some twists on the genre, because an RTS being top down and basically just the whole real-time part of it, taking away taking the strategy side, but taking away the turns. So StarCraft, Warcraft, all of these games where you're constantly, things are moving, acting, and going on. So you have to manipulate, participate with whole groups of things all around. Where MOBAs distill you down to kind of like a single hero character you're playing with the same kind of interface of point and click from the top down. RTSs were now control entire armies, build up entire defenses, forces, bases, things like that to take out whatever enemies you have, and it can be played both solo and multiplayer. Primarily, I enjoyed the heck out of a lot of these RTS single-player games, because for me, they were like a modern adaptation of a chess game or something like that. I bring that up because I've been binging since last night, The Queen's Gambit. It's been out there for a minute, always heard about it. I finally picked it up, started watching it far too late last night, and got through, I think, the first 4 episodes almost of it, and it is quite good. Enjoying that. Continue on. But the thought of a chess game and kind of the interactions and pacing of it, in that the strategy involved and the ebb and flow of how you give and take resources to try to overall progress and take out your enemy. Challenge difference being that, chess has very finite space and pieces and stuff with what seems to be infinite moves. And I figured, Earth, you'd probably appreciate Queen's Gambit since you used to do chess back in high school and such like that. I'm a little jealous because I never got into chess all that big, and I realize I'm actually pretty trash at it. I've had anybody who's ever actually played it competitively to any moment just destroys me. Because I've never studied a thing about it. But the idea of kind of the flow and what you think about what you're doing in that with the strategy and competition against each other, I think applies to real-time strategy. And I like that in single player, it kind of sets you up with conditions that create a puzzle, a type of puzzle that you get to work out and think about to solve an answer for, and it doesn't have a distinct way you have to solve it. They give you a little incentive sometimes about time that you have to do, or number of units or things like that can kind of lead you down a path. But in most RTSs, it's pretty much do what you will to beat the enemy. General rule sets. What Total Annihilation did, and it led to Supreme Commander, because Supreme Commander is a follow-on, it completely changed a paradigm that was consistent for almost every RTS prior, and that was the introduction of a continuous economy, a rolling economy kind of thing. And it's hard to describe. I don't know what the proper term for it is. But in previous versions of almost every RTS, you would generate whatever resources you had, energy, some kind of building resources, usually what most systems have, or just money in some cases. I think Command and Conquer was like Vespian gas or something, or whichever one it was. I don't know if that. No, Vespians. I think the Vespian gas was StarCraft. CNC, I think it was the crystals. It might have only been the crystals, the harvesters you do. Might not even had another resource. But in almost every previous RTS, when you had enough resource to buy something, you just bought it. And you either had enough money or you didn't. And if you didn't have enough money, the thing you wanted to buy wasn't even available, and you had to wait till you had enough money of whatever resource or whatever it was to buy it. What Total Annihilation did that was unique at the time was a combination of having two resources, energy and metal, And both of them were converted not by sole total amount you had, but by the rate at which you generated the resources and the rate at which you spent the resources. And in doing so, it became this extra kind of management step in it where you could get yourself in a bind if you weren't careful, because you could queue up as many things as you want to be built. It kind of had an infinite queue system, and especially I'll probably transition this over to Supreme Commander because the same conversation, at least the first Supreme Commander. 2, they switched it up a little bit, but where you could start multiple projects, and if you weren't paying attention, you would basically stifle your own ability to create. It would shut you down to the point where everything's still building, but you're not able to generate enough resources, so everything slows down to a crawl. And if you're not careful, you can cripple yourself early game by doing that, or really any point in the game. But it made for an interesting point, because now you could kind of more discreetly manage your resources to say, I need to set up an infinite queue of this kind of vehicle or unit to help protect my front lines. I want infantry to go out there and just constantly patrol, or tanks or something like that, as well as setting up kind of infinite movement and patrol lines so that you could really get complex with movement of units to say, when you're created, I want you to all gather here. Or when you're created, I want you to automatically go over here through this route, multiple point route. And then once you get there, start doing a patrol around that area, which will put you in a position of attacking anything that comes in that area. But so in doing so, you could really set up the overall flow, not just the layout, but flow of your forces, your base, your resources, and everything, such that a lot of it became somewhat autonomous. Once you set it up, you could just let it sit and keep going. And then it was more about managing it all as you kept going. You could do discrete management of units and forces fighting, but you could also just do discrete management of adjusting build orders and how many or rates and such. And partly you could do that as well by assigning multiple build units or things to support a factory or someone else doing construction. So there are ways that you could diverse or put more of your resources into specific projects. I love that because it allowed you to really kind of build up a way other than in older games you used to have to like put down multiple factories to try to just keep popping out units faster and faster. In SUPCOM and Total Annihilation, you could put a bunch of engineers supporting a single facility or two and produce units as fast as you could pump resources into it. And that was kind of unique. I really like that. For me, partly because it became less about the micromanaging or macromanaging of all the individual, like having 5 different production facilities. You can do it still in Total Annihilation and SUPCOM, but I'm not good at that. I'm good at like queuing up 1 or 2 of the same kind, and maybe this one's going to focus more on these heavy units, while this one's going to give me all the little units that are kind of the fodder. That's about as far as my gameplay was able to extend, but it still allowed me to be very flexible in how I did it, such that I could compete with people who are even better at doing like many, many, many. I could just like focus on those resources, focus on defending them and putting up other things like that. It also provided, in a way better than I think a lot of RTS's, base building and strong base building, because you can always punch through a base, but it allowed you flexibility where if I'm focused on getting my tech up and I'm not trying to sacrifice a bunch of units, I could, with some good design, put down enough like multiple anti-ground, anti-air turrets and walls and things like that that I could take on all but a really concentrated attack. And in doing so, it could give me time to update my technology further and thus reinforce my defenses even more. So it was a great game for turtling. And especially in the single player, I love doing that. Some people, not their flow, not their way of playing, but I like that style for me. Sometimes just get up to a crushing force and then go destroy. But at the same time, people who want to rush could do that, and if they have the right strategy in mind, could get past that base build defense and cripple you, and it becomes still an equal setting. So it's not like turtling benefited one game style over another. And I like that SUPCOM and TA also had like range that most other RTSs never thought about. They were able to give you attacks, units, and things to go across massive maps and reach out and touch others. And so you'd have to kind of do the rock, paper, scissors game of, where do I spend my resources? How quickly do I build what technology? Am I more focused on taking units directly to the attack and having them go at it, and therefore I'm not worried about the long range attack or the defenses? They don't have to worry about the defenses about them. Or can I play the other way start building up long-range artillery or nuclear devices, things like that, where if the enemy hasn't built the right defenses, you can start peppering and destroying a base behind the line, even if they have massive units and stuff set up. So it's interesting to see how how any various strategies go in that, and they give you a lot of flexibility of playing how you want. They also did something in SUPCOM and TA that almost no other RTS at the time had done, where they give you flexibility in how you built your bases, units, and stuff like that, because they didn't tie you down to just this base structure. Like CC and some of the older ones would kind of force you could only get so far away from your main base. Your base had to build out from. TA and SUPCOM, you could take a construction unit, send them out to the middle of the field nowhere, and if they weren't destroyed, they could build whatever they wanted within their construction queue out in the middle of nowhere. And that was kind of great. It led to some other types of strategies of multiple sub bases or how you could build defensive lines. For someone like me who likes to base build, it means my strategy usually involves building a bunch of forward operating bases. And so get the first one going, but the further I can project out my base with already turrets and stuff on it, the happier I was, versus projecting out units and having to wait for units to get out there and such. And so there's just so many aspects of that kind of gameplay in SUPCOM that have drawn me. And in addition to some of the great UI stuff, because they did some great things with giving you like pushing tech and allowing like massive battles with huge numbers of units and things like that on the screen, where previous ones would always cap out way earlier than I'd like to do if I turtled. And then it also let these massive battles occur, and with such fidelity that you could scroll down. It was all done in 3D, even though it was top down. You could even, a lot of people didn't know you could hit like spacebar if you zoomed in enough and scroll it in third dimension to kind of look at an angle, so you could actually see the heights of everything. Individual projectiles are all modeled and things like that. So it can be a really epic battle to watch if you're paying attention, if your computer can handle it. You get some big enough attacks, and even hefty machines can start to slow down. But just, gosh, so much about the gameplay of SUPCOM and TA I've loved. Just loved it forever. Terrain's an issue, so you can have artillery, but if it's coming in at such an angle that there's a hill in the way, it'll hit the hill instead of the target you're after. So a base building aspect could be butting up certain defenses or things right against the hill. There's just so many aspects of that one. And admittedly, I've touched on a lot of other RTSs over the years, and some better than others. One that was of note, but it's been years, I need to go back into and play some more of the remastered version, was Homeworld, the three-dimensional space-based one where you're based off of a factory individual ship. That was your capital ship, and expanded out from there. Awesome game. Loved it. Some unique aspects to it that are kind of similar to some of the things TA did that I like. But, each their own and stuff like that. So, but that's for me one of the reasons that specific type of game just blew me away compared to other RTSs I've done. Also, I still don't know if anyone else has done this quite the same. Space, like Homeworld, I think had it, but SUPCOM and TA had an infinite zoom thing where you could just zoom out mouse wheel all the way out to a tactical map, and as you went out to it, it goes to symbology. And as you zoom in, it goes to individual unit, so you can render everything all the way down to you can get down on the ground watching like a unit run along, which I thought was super cool. I'm pretty sure Homeworld had basically the same kind of level of that kind of zoom. Maybe a silly thing, but from a UI perspective, it just made it super easy to navigate around large battlefields. And instead of having to like preset places to look like StarCraft and Warcraft, remember you could like, I don't know if it's Alt or Control. One of the things you could hotkey locations on the map and use those to hotkey navigate around the map, as well as doing groupings of units. But in SUPCOM, you could just zoom out real quick, and wherever your cursor was when you zoom back in, you're right into the map, which is great. As well as it have a mini map, and you could kind of do the same thing there. And I think it was SUPCOM allowed you, and I've never really done this to extreme. If you have multiple monitors, I should probably try it again on this to set up that now that I have my new monitor set up, where you could put like your regular gameplay on one screen, and you could actually multi-monitor on a second screen and have another basically full display. But it'd be like you'd set it up as your map, but if you moved over to your map and zoomed in, you're playing on it. And if you move over to the other side, zoom out, it's your map. And so it's just such a clean UI for it. I loved it. All right. So that was SUPCOM with my the whole like top-down RTS type game. Doom Eternal I had brought up for one of my favorite like first persons I'm playing right now, just because it's adrenaline. It's old school. There's still health packs, ammo, things like that a lot of modern games have kind of forgo where they let you sit and wait and heal up and shield up and stuff just by not being in combat for a moment. Doom is all about like, let's go get them. And I finally invested in Doom Eternal. The original 2016, I think it was great. Doom Eternal is an addition to that. It adds more. It adds better graphics. The engine everyone talks about can run in high FPS on a potato. So I love that it's being an adrenaline action game. It runs accordingly, which just feels great. So love that aspect. And it's just visceral, fun, killing bonanza. Yeah, it's so great. I don't know. I don't know if there's a multiplayer or not. I haven't even bothered. But I like old school FPSs. I struggle sometimes at a lot of newer FPSs. As much as I like Warzone, there's times I miss just being able to go and just kill everything around me and just rawr. And I recently played Eternal, and one of the little challenges that it was specifically designed as one of the hard challenges. I think I had to replay it probably a dozen times or more before I finally beat it and got like a flow of the chaos of all the creatures coming at me. But when I did pull it off, I stepped away kind of with this adrenaline like, whoo! Oh, I did that. That was awesome. So that's just a heck of a good time. I can jump into that, get the blood pumping, kill a bunch of stuff, and walk away from it just like, yeah, all right, next thing I'm doing. I want to bring that up and try to think other stuff because FPSs, man, it's been. I mean, I am looking forward to like the next Battlefield. Some I'm going to wait for others to buy it. I'm not going to pre-order on any of that to see if it comes out good or not. But I also, because Doom Eternal it's a single player game, right? Initially the campaign. I love campaigns, and I am disappointed whenever almost any game style doesn't have some kind of single player game. I understand MOBAs and stuff, and they at least have against the computer, but even then, if you can give me an actual campaign where it's a reason I'm playing with this champ and I'm moving forward with this story, as much as I don't like focus on the story itself, like in depth, like please don't make me read a ton, but let me play in game and get a little bit of story to go with it and compelling why to play the character. I like that, and I like being able to kind of do it at my own pace. That's not always the online against other people gameplay. You know, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on my mood. Let's see. The last one I was going to bring up, and then I was going to switch topics here, it was Beat Saber. So I didn't talk about a lot of VR. I don't bring it up as much as I probably could, mostly because I love my VR. I got my Quest 2 here, but I don't play it as much as I'd like. Granted, I say this comparison just in games in general. I haven't been gaming as much as I'd like lately. A lot of household things. The guys, they're busy with life. Ken's doing, job stuff. Todd's dealing with family things and such that are all like, takes your time, right? I'm dealing with household things and other stuff like that. So haven't been able to game as much as I like. But when I do play on VR, like the first place I go, and even if I'm going to play another game primarily, I'll usually still bring it up to warm up for just VR, is Beat Saber. Because Beat Saber mixes genres of things I love and have enjoyed gaming over the years. It's VR, which is the new hotness of that, but it's a rhythm and music game. And gosh, I love this. I love me some, Guitar Hero back in the day, Karaoke Revolutions, up to now, the whole still rock band. In the arcades, the DDR, even when I could bring them home, DDR and stuff like that. Anything where I got to move my body to music and do something rhythm-based. Have always loved those games. They're jazz, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of translation to say, what am I doing? And it's now just a performance thing. Can I hit the button in the right order, parappa the rappa style? Can I do the drums in the right combination that must be probably the most analogous to actual drumming of anything you could do with like a virtual game when it comes to any kind of rhythm and music game. Well, in Beat Saber, that you're just basically using laser swords to cut through blocks in order that they're maps written, hopefully in a way that manages the music and makes it feel fun to play, not just the technique of it and how difficult it can be. But you get such an experience of seeing the blocks flying at you in the VR scope so that it just naturally is where you'd expect it to be. And then the movements that feel in me, one who likes to dance and stuff, it's like on those rhythms and with those motions that a really good beat map. I feel like I'm doing, if there's a music video and dance associated, something like that, I feel like I'm doing the dance. I'm doing the thing in the video or something, and they time it accordingly. It's great. One of the best examples, and it's on their regular OST stuff, is the KDA beat map from League of Legends. Let's mix two games. The song they did for League of Legends Kill Death Assists, you have the digital music video to reference, but they have points where you were doing the motions in time with the song that is almost straight out of the video. And they made the map smart enough that even if you weren't to watch the video or know, if you were to go back and watch it, you're doing that part of the song where all of a sudden the hands are pumping, right? Boom, boom, boom. But now you're doing swipes with the blocks at that time. And so I feel like there's just some really great rhythm and maps that have been done out there, and some of the best music you can find. Thank goodness for mods in the mod community, because it just extends everything and it's so much better. And so Beat Saber to me is like just the perfect blend of what's currently available for interfaces for rhythm. Because having those controllers, I mean, it would be wonderful if they could tie it all together with full body. They allow you to move your head up and down, right and left to the environment to a degree. But if they could track your feet that step further and such, because I think the other game prior to this that was probably at the top of my list until they lost all support for it was the Xbox Kinect version of Dance Central, because it did the full body tracking. You could see your hands, your feet, your head, everything. And so it was wonderful about actually translating and tracking full body motion into dance, and it could force you to do dance moves that were legit, not just like with Beat Saber, the assumption, or like on the, what's the other dance one everyone does on the Wii and stuff, crud, I can actually see almost the commercial for it. Just Dance, the Just Dance series, where it's focused on the hands, right? Doom, doom, doom. They have to interpolate or assume that you're doing all the rest of the dance moves, and they're pretty smart with accelerometers, but there's limits. You could pseudo fake some of that, although again, I've seen it; they're pretty good. But with the Kinect, man, you had full visual where you had to move your foot the right direction. You had to tweak your knee when it needed it to, and not just kind of shake your hips or something. And so I wish they could add that element to like Beat Saber, or there is a VR version of Dance Central, but man, I refuse to get it because it's not the full body thing, and everyone that changes their model to a subscription model versus let me buy the whole damn game and maybe pay for extra songs later. I can't support Dance Central anymore. It sucks. But I love rhythm games, and right now Beat Saber's got my heart for it. It's still probably the best one out there, and it's a VR game. All right, so that's what I wanted to bring up for the kind of follow-on on gaming styles and stuff like that of other games that I enjoy, and why the specific main types of each of those games I'm enjoying. I wanted to add all of those to the discussion from what I didn't have last time. All right. I may actually take more than one break this show, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to take a quick one, and what I want to do after this break is I kind of wanted to catch up on some of the things I've been watching, if that's all right with everyone. I want to get into a little bit of like, there's some shows. Like I said, I was watching Queen's Gambit. Not that I wanted to get into that one, but I wanted to get into a little bit of the MCU. I also have the news a little bit that I'd love to talk about the Steam Deck and what people might think about that. Maybe that's what I'll come back first. We'll talk Steam Deck first, and then we will come back and we'll talk a little bit about the MCU, because I've been watching Loki, just watched Black Widow, some of those things, and I'm kind of curious what other people's thoughts are, what's coming out. I don't plan to talk spoilers, so don't worry too much about that, but I want to get into a little bit. Some of the geek that I have been focused on this past week. All right, I am going to pick a somewhat random song to throw in here. I'm going to see if there's any, you know what, that looks fun and is going to be not relevant to anything we've been talking about today. And so I'm going to play just a shorter song, just under 3 minutes. This is from, was it Timaeus 222? Darkwing Duck, Funky Moles, and Trashy Ducks is what the song is called from OC Remix. So I'm going to jump on this, and then we'll be back right after that, and I'll talk a little bit about this Steam Deck and see what you guys think about that as well. So, all right, you are watching this Wayne's World edition of Show X. Like I said, the co-hosts are busy with life, and so I wanted to make sure and come out so I could still chat and say hey to everybody. But we are going to continue after this break. So feel free to message me in the chat, to email in at vtwshowx@gmail.com. Anything you're wanting to chat about, and we will get to it. Because I don't see... Yep, no emails I got to worry on right now. And so we're good with that. All right, be back right after this.
You're listening to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. All right, so talked about some of the games, follow up on some of the games I'm playing and why I like them and why in their genre I think they're king compared to others I could be playing. The next thing I want to talk about, and I'm sure this is the first you're going to have heard about it. If you haven't, I don't know where you've been sitting, unless you've not been involved with any social media or watching any other like tech YouTube channels or something around like that. But Valve, kind of out of nowhere, I mean, there were some early reports of something. They originally had it called, I think, the was it the Steam Pad or Steam something like that? I forget what the original name for it was or the kind of code name was. But Valve recently just announced the new Steam Deck. And I say this because I jokingly, and I've had to correct myself and make sure I say it right as much, because in front of me the controller I use is the Stream Deck, which is the Elgato button system thing. But this is the Steam Deck, which is the upcoming handheld PC being developed by Valve. Kind of funny. A lot of people have just off the bat commented that like Nintendo with their Switch, because this has got the look feel kind of thing to be compared to, came out with or announced that they're releasing an OLED screen updated Switch that is still otherwise the same Switch as we've had forever for the same, or for $50 more actually. So I guess it's going to be what, $349 or $350 or whatever for that. And everybody was like, meh, because if you have a Switch, you don't need the Switch OLED version. Everyone's waiting for a 2.0. Jokingly, a lot of people said, oh, Valve just announced the Steam or basically the Switch Pro. So what this is, if you haven't heard about it, is starting shipping in December of this year. The new Steam Deck is going to be coming out at $399. What it is an all-in-one portable PC gaming system. It has thumbsticks on it. Like I said, it's very Switch-like, but slightly different ergonomics. A lot of people have talked about this. It's got a D-pad, it's got thumbsticks, your regular XYAB buttons. But then in addition, it also has the triggers, right? Your R2, R1, L2, L1. It's got 4 buttons underneath that you can hit the R, what is that, 4, 5, 6, 7 or something like that. Or, I mean, R, 4, 5, and L, 4, 5 or something on it that allows you to have extra buttons that are mappable underneath. It also, in addition to the D-pad and the analog sticks, has 2 slide controllers. Now, I guess I can try to share with you. I didn't set this up for just me, so coming back to this could be interesting. But if I can share with you my screen, boom, you are looking at, like, this is their site. This is the SteamDeck.com, and you can see the actual visuals of what is going to be the way this new system looks. It's got a compelling, I think, price point where, you know, the new Switch is going to be $350, or basically this one is $399 starting and goes up to $650 or $669 or something like that, I think is the high one, where it just adds a slight difference in the technology between them of the hard drive storage, really. Otherwise, they're the exact same hardware. The base one of these is going to have just a regular SSD, a serial ATA connected SSD that is 64 gigs. The 2 higher models are going to be NVMe drives that are faster, that are going to be at 256 and 512 gigs of memory internally. It also has an SD slot, so you can expand it, I think, up to as much as an SD, which I think the biggest you can get if you're silly would be like a 4 terabytes, I think I've heard, which is insane priced. Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe it was like a 1 terabyte or a 512 SSD or SD stick, and then I've heard that you can actually change out the hard drive modules in it if you wanted to. They're, I think, short NVMe's, but I'm not sure. I heard a little bit about that, but I hadn't got the details. It is an AMD spec one. We'll go to the hardware here on the site just to see the actual discussion here, where it's running both a Zen 2 and RDNA 2 chips, so GPU and CPU, which should allow it to have all the latest, greatest spec for what PCs can do. So built into it, it's going to be able to do basically everything a top-end PC can do, which is awesome. So you're not really sacrificing anything for the ergonomics, from what I can tell. Other than that, what do they have on here? They talk about the comfort, the ergonomics. The touchpads are a refined version of the ones they used apparently on the Valve controllers, where they have the touchpads, and so you can do a lot of that, as well as if you go to, like, I have one of the Valve, one of their Steam controllers, which also had kind of their early haptic touchpads that work well. Nice thing is with this one, you're getting both that kind of high, in-depth mappable touchpads, as well as you still get the analog sticks, so that you have best of both worlds, theoretically. The triggers are supposed to be analog, so they're not just on-off. It's funny because I have a Switch Pro controller that I was just messing with earlier today, and I got into a racing game with it, and I was a little disappointed to realize that essentially, as far as I could tell, these triggers on the back are just switches. They're not actually analog, so there is no give. And so trying to play a race game goes back to the old school days of just on-off, not like the progressive that you get from, say, an Xbox controller, where it has like that nice analog rotation that you get. You know, the Pro controller, so Switch, is just on-off. It just clicks. If it is more discrete, I can't tell, because I tried slow pulling it and I didn't see a different interaction in game. So I'm happy to hear that these are analog. That's really good to hear. It looks like it has stereo speakers up front. It's got a USB-C connection on top for charging. Some people are complaining about why it's on top, not the bottom. It's on top so that the cord come around, and if you're sitting it down or whatever, it doesn't interfere with you. And they're coming out with a custom dock that allows you to go around it. A lot of people also looking like, man, for $400, it seems awfully expensive for a handheld. But people, I don't think, are giving enough respect to the fact that this is a full-on PC. This isn't just like it's It's not just a handheld like Switch custom built. This is a full PC. It's currently going to be running the Linux version of SteamOS, so you can run it direct in there, and from there, you could do anything you could do on Linux essentially. And they've even said you could strip off the OS completely or dual boot it and run it with Windows if you choose. And so it's a full-on PC. Which is pretty impressive with a USB connection, USB-C, so you can plug in any USB-C device. And that's why when they're building the dock for it, it's going to be not just a dock to plug it into your television. It'll also be like any USB-C extender or dock. You'll be able to have multiple USBs on. I think it's got a single USB 3, two USB 2s. It's going to have the charging adapter for it. It's going to have an Ethernet connection, and it's going to have, I think, both HDMI and DisplayPort out. So you can connect to both monitors or televisions directly, which is pretty darn awesome. So this is going to be a super powerful, like, handheld computer. My brother Earthweaver brought it up as we were discussing it a little bit online before. The ergonomics or size should be, in a way, similar, although slightly different, to this massive JXD Android tablet that I have specifically as a controller for a submersible. It's actually going to be a similar size. And this thing's hefty. I mean, portable-esque in the sense that it's not going to go in your pocket, but you can take it with you on the go fairly easily. And so I feel like it's going to be a lot like this, although probably heavier. And in a similar way, it's going to have a similar size touchscreen on the front. It's going to be a 7-inch touchscreen. I think it's a 400 nit, maybe 600. I forget how bright it will be. It's not going to be super bright, but bright enough. Because like this one of the things is having the equal analogs on it. It's nice. So having it up there will be interesting to have it up top. But like this one has a molded grip into the controls so that you get kind of, it's like a blend of bringing the Xbox controller directly onto a tablet. So it's going to be similar, but not completely. And now this thing is very underpowered and it's old and they never really update it beyond. So it's got an old this has an old quad core, was this an ARM processor? I forget what's in this one. It's got like 4 gigs of RAM, a 64 gig storage. This one, what's interesting, this one does have 19 by 1200 display. I forget if I got to go down checking the tech specs on this one on the Steam Deck because I thought it was only 720 or something, but no, I know they said it was a 16 by 10 was the thing. So this one's going to be, where is it? 16 gigs of RAM, which is nice. So 3 versions will hold. Where's the display? There. Okay, so it's basically going to be... No, it is less, because this is a full 19 by 12. This one's going to be a 1280 by 800 resolution screen. So way less resolution than this device. However, there it is, 400 nits, 60 hertz. This one... it looks pretty, but struggles to run a lot of things. So it'll be curious what this next one will do, because at that resolution, there's a discussion about the give and take of how much resolution do you need at what size. And for a 7-inch screen, 1280 by 800 is pretty good. And what the advantage of it is if you're gaming at that resolution, it actually performs very well. Because one of the things they're really focusing on is you look at the screen on top, and I think where they're showing some of the gameplay here, they're focused on the fact that you're going to be able to play full-on games on your PC that you have in Steam on this device. That if you have it in your Steam library, you're already ready to play it on this new Steam Deck coming forward. And because they have cloud save enabled, anything that has a cloud save on Steam, you should be able to pick up and go from what you're playing on your desktop to what you're playing on the Steam Deck and just keep on rolling, which is a pretty cool concept. They're also introducing, which is something we bitched about, I think, not long ago, or I might have talked about with some of the console guys now, where the Xbox and the PS both have levels of like save state now where you can jump in and continue to game where you were before. They're going to, for the first time, introduce that kind of regular PC games where we've had an emulation forever now. You've been able to, in an emulator, not all, most, jump in and just say, save your state right here, come back, and it loads up without a pause menu or anything right to where you were previously and keep on playing. And so that'll be pretty cool. It'll help with the kind of pick up and go aspect of gaming. Should be pretty neat. It's weird because I've struggled with wanting a mobile console for anything. And so there's a question out there of like, who is this for? And part of me is actually looking at this with some expectation that it may actually be for me. The reason I say that is I think the laptop I have right now, I got it specifically so I could do the show on the road. But at the time when I got it, it was a great gaming laptop. It was a dual video card, was it 750 Ti's or something to date it, and it's running like an i7. Oh gosh, I don't even remember which generation chip it has in it. I'd have to go look. Way older than what I have in my desktop right now. It's got like 16 gigs of memory. I think it's got a hybrid SSD hard drive that's like a terabyte drive, but only like not even 128 gigs of it is SSD. I think it's smaller than that to kind of speed up some runs, and a cache style thing. And it's fine. It works. It's a laptop, but I can barely keep up with modern games on it. Like I can still play League on it, but I haven't even bothered trying to play Warzone on it. It feels like I'd be in a potato state then. Like I might be able to run it, but oh gosh, it feels like it'd be a mess. Whereas this is somewhat compelling because instead of having to buy a new laptop that I barely use for anything out of the house anymore, this I could see taking with me to conventions, on trips and stuff like that, and I get the benefit of it being both, really gaming focused, where we don't know what the true duration of the battery will be. They say up to 8 hours on 2D light gaming. You play a fully rendered, ray traced game that's kicking it. I'm sure that drops down to just a couple hours. But if it can manage like 2 solid hours of hardcore gaming, that's enough for me to take most flights I'm going to want to do. Some combination of watching a movie or playing games, I could see doing that. That could be cool. So we'll see where it could be, and honestly, for the price, because they had the 3 versions, and I'm trying to see where they talk about. Yeah, there's the pricing and everything. Here you go, 3 storage options. That base model, whatever. I would be the guy, right? I'd go for the 512 gig. I could never have enough storage to have it both locally, even though you can install and uninstall. But it's a PC, so why take that time? And depending on what your internet's like, I could see rolling several of my favorite games on there. So I'd probably get the 649 one. As well as, this would probably be one of the most bad arse emulation stations in existence. Now I know that people jokingly said you just install Yuza on this thing and there you go, there's your Switch Pro. It makes me chuckle. I somewhat agree with the idea. However, at the same time, I have to admit, running Yuza even on my Core i7 that I've got with, I have an old 6000 series, 6850K or whatever, and I've got a 3090 in here, and I've got 64 gigs of memory and stuff like that on my PC. There are games on Yuza, the Switch emulator, that do not perform well. Like, there are some that work great, and there's a lot that are like, Now, Simu would probably run fairly well, but I'd be curious, because if Simu is the Wii U one, and basically older games like that, and what's funny is the Wii U stuff, specifically like Breath of the Wild compared to the Switch Pro or Switch version, it's the exact same game. For those who don't know, it's the exact same game. But the Simu emulator is so refined that it runs at double, if not faster, the performance than the Yuzo emulator does. And so I could see you, but running Simu back, you could be playing PlayStation up through probably PlayStation 2 comfortably. All the Nintendo stuff up through the Wii and Wii U likely would emulate amazingly on this system. And because it can take an SD card, there's no reason you couldn't put, this would be almost a similar thing to having a handheld, to having a Switch. Your 512 gig, Wii U fully installed emulator and games all on it that you could plug in when you want to play Wii U games, take it out, and when you want to play like every other retro game in existence. Actually, man, honestly, I think a 512 SD would hold every old generation, like arcade up through, original NES, SNES, all the handheld versions of PSP, Vita probably, like a whole lot of old generation emulation would fit on like a single SD card. And even if you're going up into the Wii U / Switch, you could probably do one other card for that and hold almost all you'd ever want to play on those. You could have like 2 SD cards and have your entire retro library in your lap. So just that aspect of what this could do and having the built-in control scheme for it just could make it worth every penny like that. Now there's a challenge. This is talking about what it would take to get. But if you come in here and actually look at reserving one, which I'd looked at before, I don't think this is showing you my information. Yeah, I'm not logged on. So, but if you actually go to do it, the challenge where they talk about, is the availability. When do these things ship? And so right now, because there have been so many reserved pre-orders, even the low end 64 gig version isn't going to be available now if you're to get a reservation today until the second quarter of next year. So at the earliest, you're looking at like April 2022 if you want any of these. And then you're looking at if you want the big one, that's not until quarter 3, to like July-ish time frame, July, August. And so these are popular. In fact, it's in our current state of the world, right? And the way shortages have been, people have already seen these things go up on pre-order lists or resale lists for thousands of dollars to say people have guaranteed reserve of like the first set of them coming out this year, and they're trying to get more than $1,000 for someone else to buy it off them, which is just insane to me because these are not necessary. These are not needed. But, I mean, it's cool tech. Like I said, I think it fits one of my play styles and things I want, but I cannot see justifying for anybody to spend that kind of money. Don't pay for scalpers, guys. Do not go that route. If you want one that bad, just wait. You'll be able to get one eventually. But I am looking at these, and it looks like some cool bit of tech. And I think the more I talk about it, the more I'm looking at that big one. Like, I'd love it. Challenge, though. The reality of how long until they're going to be available makes me wonder, because essentially Valve has indicated they don't care who makes these. They just want people to be able to truly game on the go as a PC, and they want a different paradigm for form factor and what you can do on the go from a traditional laptop. And the idea of making a true handheld version of a computer seems pretty attractive. And so them doing that, they've said that they don't care who makes these. So theoretically, as these hit, and we'll see what the market's like, it sounds like there's already been over 1 million pre-orders on it. We could see versions from ASUS or, you MSI or whomever, you pick your developer to come out and produce their version of a Steam Deck and a handheld PC that you could hopefully get a hold of. We'll see. I don't know. I love the idea. I'm even thinking in my head now further uses of where I hope someone bastardizes this design and creates a true car PC based off of it that could run full on like Windows 10 on it or such, because then I could plug in my AEM on that. Because right now car PCs are kind of half-assed back and forth. The only thing you'd have to do is take everything about this and add a DAC to it, or a audio converter, so you could plug it into your speakers in a car, and you pretty much have an awesome car PC. Hopefully someone can. Ooh. I wonder if I could hack and build my own out of this. Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But I have thoughts on this now. Wait, because if you honestly, all you'd need an amp, and if you had an output that is an audio output on it, you could do some stuff. I'll have to think about that. That's a whole other thing. Be the first hacking car PC out of a Steam Deck. That could be really fun. God, you could extend the touchpads and controllers into like one that's on your dash. Thoughts. Okay, I'm not there yet. I don't have those skills yet, but that's a mindset. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited for it. I'll be curious what the tech will look like whenever they're available. Was to say there's a year from now, essentially. Will this still be amazing when it comes out a year from now when you can actually get one in your hands? Or will other companies have come up with more powerful, better versions of it, because technology in PC space moves fast? So in a year from now, my expectation is you'd have even stronger versions. Now, what would be really slick is if Valve could come out there and somehow show that they do refreshes mid-cycle, and such that the Steam Deck you buy or are able to get hold of a year from now is better than the Steam Deck you're able to get hold of at the end of this year. I doubt that. That would be kind of a douchey thing to do to the people that have already bought it, but we'll see. Again, technology in the computer space moves too fast, and therefore that's the one thing that's probably holding me back myself from doing a pre-order, because who knows what'll be available a year from now. All right. That's what I had to bring up about the Steam Deck. I think it looks cool. I mean, if it was shipping today, I'd buy it for sure. Like it would be worthwhile for me. I feel like for my brother Earth, it would probably be something that, as much as you're on the road, if you had one of these to supplement your new desktop you're building, wouldn't that be darn cool? But we'll see. So that's a cool one. Like I said, you probably didn't hear it here first. It's been all over the place, but I wanted to mention it. All right. The next thing I wanted to bring up, if people are still curious, is the MCU. All right. So like I said, I have been watching TV. I have been focusing on things that I'd enjoy, sit down, and kind of like enjoying all around. See, Earth, that's what I thought. I figured that knowing your travel schedule, how you're often on the road, being able to have a full-on replacement laptop-style PC that you can just game on, which, oh, by the way, with the dock, you can turn into a full PC, seems like it'd be a heck of a compelling piece of hardware for anyone who's on the road a lot. All right, so going into the MCU recently, there's been a couple releases and series and things out there. I just finished wrap on Loki. Saw all of what it had offered, as well as I just watched Black Widow. So those are the main two things I wanted to focus on. Real briefly, back to like WandaVision, and I'm trying to think what else we've seen. I don't include MODOK because that is its own weird side thing that is just not. It's so weird. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's MODOK. It's different. There's a lot of talent in it that surprises me, but it's also just weird. So canon stuff, things that actually matter for storytelling. Order of things, I started watching Loki, and this comes off of, again, watching like WandaVision, watching Falcon and Winter Soldier. I love that Disney Marvel has been pushing their movie content down to television onto Disney Plus, such that they're able to, in my opinion, spend a little more time and care on character development, story development, backstory, things like that, without it having to be this big, epic, constant battle that you'll try to get into in a movie, where you've got basically 2 hours to tell a complete story, get people hyped, and resolve it in a movie. Having a series, it gives the writers time to really craft a little bit more story and delve into subjects that maybe need a little bit more soak time to really appreciate what's happening, the implications of, and where it could lead. Because one of the beautiful things I think about the MCU, or the Marvel Universe as a whole, is that being comic-based stories, they all tie together and they all lead towards a bigger story that is being told. We saw that with all the Avengers series and how the movies around them all blended in and out and led to the overall story that was being told in Avengers that finished out with Endgame. And so now, as they're doing the next chapter, I think we're in officially, the fourth timeline or fourth generation of it? I never kept track of all the numbers of what's the official thing about it. But essentially, since we're in kind of like the fourth set, oh, that's cool. I'm at the Marvel.com movies side that has basically all of them that we've had so far. And it's great because, prior to this and prior to like lockdowns and such, the last movie we had was Spider-Man Far From Home, which was a great movie, and it was one of the first ones taking place kind of after the events of Endgame, so that we got to see the follow-on. What was the world like now after people have come back from the snap, and all these other things have gone, and it's kind of shown that the world has continued, but there's definitely been repercussions from it. So getting into then the television series, right? Oh, that's so cool. I can just click over. Yay, Marvel, for having a good site. They have had, I think, a pretty good run where not sure what they were going to do, but when they came out with WandaVision and it started hitting this whole like sitcom-ish, we're not sure what's going on, the first probably 3 episodes, and then it starts building into something a little more coherent from there to the end, I was down the whole time. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I heard enough ahead of time to preempt me so I wasn't thrown off by the style. I saw it, was like, oh, okay, I got this. I'll keep going. And then it continued on and led to a state of, all right, here's where Wanda was mentally, and physically, what she's doing at the time and end of WandaVision, and what likely she will be getting into next. I thought it really did a good job of setting us up for another piece, and it had an interesting conversation about PTSD and dealing with some serious life what the hecks. I also believe, now that I've watched, all of Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Black Widow, that it was definitely our first touch into what the next big story arc is going to be from Marvel, which, having watched a few other analysis sites from people that are way bigger geeks than me, and just remembering aspects of what I've read in comics over my years, looks like they're really heavily focused, and this is going to be like the understatement of the year, on the multiverse, right? The idea that comics have done this forever, DC has been doing it as well, that there are alternate timelines, alternate versions of existence. We heard about it in ways from the original, from Doctor Strange, and we heard about it a little bit from, I think it was Endgame, or the first half of that, where the Keeper, or the was it the Sorcerer Supreme, she basically commented, I want to say to Bruce Banner or Hulk, about pulling things and such, again, about how it kind of touched on the multiverse and when things must or must not happen, stuff like that. But we get in Doctor Strange, he talks about the infinite realities he'd seen, and we get into Endgame and stuff, just where it all branches off ends. That with WandaVision, we now come back, and they did this things with her psychosis, with what she was dealing with, we started seeing pieces and parts of what the could-be's of the world, her having a family with Vision, her having kids and such like that, which tie into real stuff that happened in comics of family things and such. And so it allowed us to peek at eventualities and what could be. We got that, and then what was the other piece I want to say about that connection? We'll get into the others. But we got a peek out of her, and as she's leaving, she's going back into the world, and we'll see what happens from it. Falcon Winter Soldier, not really anything I'd say from the multiverse, more just backstory within them. Hey, Ionis, welcome. Good to see you. Yes, as a follow-on to people who don't know why this is an official episode, Ken's doing some school stuff, Todd's got important family stuff going on, so I figured I'd come on still to provide a little bit of distraction for people who are hanging out on a Sunday, and in doing so, just talk about whatever I want to talk about today. And so now I'm talking about Marvel. And so the Falcon and Winter Soldier, what I did love about it is it gave more depth to the universe we live in a post-original Captain America world. It was an interesting take for me on how they introduced how the state, the United States as a whole could not accept not having the role of Captain America filled, and thus tried to force it, and how it kind of progressed through that. I'm trying to do a non-spoiler version of talking about these for people who may not have seen them yet. I liked it because it provided depth to who each of the characters are, to both Falcon and Winter Soldier. It built their relationship, and how both of them are dealing with a post, Steve Rogers world, which I thought was pretty cool. It still talked into a little bit of the politics around things, and kind of the ownership of things like the shield of Captain America, and how it was given after this fact by the U.S. government for the symbology, and yet the kind of discussion of is like, but is it theirs to give, is it theirs to bestow upon someone for the symbology? It was great because it didn't shy away from talking about some comic lines, stories that people may not have read about the origin of the Super Soldier project, and how it wasn't just Steve Rogers who made it up. It definitely talked about some current affair type of interactions, racially and other things like that. And it was crazy. So wait, okay, Ionis, you're putting in real life word ban, and it tells me you are saying I cannot say this actor's name now as a word ban for today. Man, why would you call him out? That messes me up. That's all right. We'll continue. But I thought it was really cool of them to get into some of these subjects and to bring up the basically Black Super Soldier and how that whole thing went and the world through which it happened. I thought that was good on you. And it was a story that exists in the comics that a lot of people, like I said, probably have not read. And so I was really happy that they spent time with it. It was interesting because I saw a lot of response from people in various chat rooms and such saying that they did not appreciate Falcon and Winter Soldier. And that surprised me. I know a lot of, like, I thought for me, I would be one of the ones who disliked it because I, in general, prior to this series, despised the character Bucky. He annoyed the crud out of me. And I admit to myself that part of the reason he annoyed me is because of all the, and this happens to me with so many things I enjoy, the fan base around the characters in the movies. I know so many people, primarily so many gals, who just squee over Bucky from the movies, and I never understood it. I always thought, like, that was an example of Captain America, like, the whole conversation of duty versus friendship. And what bothered me about it was in, I forget which movie it was tied into initially, where Bucky first comes in. I mean, you guys all know better than I. Let's see, let me click over to the movies again and see them. Maybe it'll spark which one that was. If that was the actual Captain America one, or was that... It wasn't, that was before Black Panther, so that would have been Civil War. In Civil War, but just the introduction where there was a point where, having been in the military and seeing the idea of sacrifice of one versus the many, it felt to me that when Captain America had the opportunity, he chose Bucky over the greater state of the nation and security of the world, that I didn't feel like was justified or explained by the character. Didn't make sense to me. Bothered me the whole time. And so I kept looking back at that decision, the way they played it out, like, nope, real Captain America, and from what I've known of him in the prior movies, that would not have been the decision he would have made. And so it made me mad even further about the Bucky thing, and let alone I didn't understand how girls were just all, he's so whatever. And so I kind of just threw him under the bus as a character I didn't care for. Going into Falcon and Winter Soldier, they changed all that and given him a personality, more backstory, and kind of pulling it through. While not as epic in like some of the battles or kind of revolutionary for the world, I thought they did such a good job of building up to the end state of where each of the characters exists at the end of the movie or series. And I really appreciated it. And I like that it gave it a little less black and white history to the whole program and where they should be and kind of how they left it for the decisions the characters made. And I think it's going to lead very well, potentially, back into the movies that we see coming forward. And the beauty of them doing this in the series, and we'll get into this with Loki because that's where it's really going to matter, is it gives us depth that they would never have had the time to give us in any one of the movies. And in doing so, we would have had to just accept all these things thrown at us really quickly to understand why the heck characters are doing what they are, why the plot's where it's at, why the big bad is who it is. And so that just messed me up, where it's like I am appreciative that Disney's going through this hybrid approach of doing television series and the movies, because I think having these series hit before the next major movie, and then we'll get to Black Widow, that it sets us up perfectly for what the next big story arc is going to be. Yes, Mika, I said that I used to hate Bucky prior to Falcon and Winter Soldier because I thought he was a punk that he never earned the right for all the love people gave him. Whereas now, after Falcon and Winter Soldier, he has enough depth that I can respect him, and I now no longer dislike him. I actually like him as a character. And so I give props to Disney for telling that story. And so, as well as, let alone the weird to me, but I kind of understand it, conversation about having Falcon become the new Captain America, essentially. That's the spoiler you get. Because I saw a lot of feedback that I think was veiled, and I hate to put it in this context of people showing their discomfort. I'm going to throw it out there as from what I witnessed, I would project as likely, from what I've heard in certain specific conversations, people showing a discomfort of having a black man represent the United States in such a visceral format based on a character that they had forever in their mind seen only one way. And that way being blonde hair, blue eye, white male, as a symbol of the United States in this form and what people call America. And so I think it was interesting to see this transition, and it solidified it for me even more, hearing some of the conversations I saw people have about why they didn't like it, and all of it seemed such thin reasons, and it translated the best they would project was it was uncomfortable to them, but none of them would really explore the why. And because of course you try to touch on some of those issues, you may not like what you see. So not to say that was a whole lot. I know a lot of people who are totally cool with what happened, but I heard some specifics where I was like, I feel like, sir, you might want to spend some more time with some introspect on that, because I think you might learn a little bit more about yourself. Anyhow, I'll leave that be, because that again, that made a whole lot of people uncomfortable. And I feel like that's why a lot of people tried to say that it wasn't as good a series as I believe it really was. Now, Loki. Loki is, like, to me, no question, the series show that is going to lead directly into the main next arc of movies, I believe. Of the big, you know, where are we going? Who's the new big baddie? What's going on? And I think it's going to, because of that, probably one of the most important of the television series they have right now. I mean, it's a gimme. Tom Hiddleston is like one of the most loved actors for his portrayal of Loki in this. He is awesome at it. For the most part, I appreciated what they did with him. I told one of my friends that they give it one scene that is the Thor-esque offshoot scene of Loki, which is the processing into the TVA, and thus he goes shirtless for that moment, and I had to stop and go respect, because Tom's been working out. That was like the Thor moment. You know, totally unnecessary, but here you go, ladies. And then it's the only time they do that in the whole series. But that was funny. I liked what they did with the storyline, and they treated it well, where they are getting into, again, this conversation of the multiverse and how lots of different realities exist together just outside of each other, and how that can cross into each other and become effects of story back and forth when you have same characters with different backgrounds and existences in different worlds interacting across the multiverse. That we are likely going to see that going forward. We have the next movies coming in of the whole, I think the next official one's the Doctor Strange, the next one. Let's see, because we have other movies coming, but I think that'll be the big one, because the next ones, I'll get into these after the Loki discussion, because I saw Black Widow. We have Shang-Chi coming up, The Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, and then we're going to get Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which is like the no question there are multiverses, right? That's coming. With the other movies, hopefully to establish new characters. Shang-Chi is going to be like new character, new introduction. We'll learn his story. The Eternals, a new other level of essentially gods that we're going to get to experience and see what's going to happen with that. I'll be curious to see how they talk about their non-existence during the major events that we saw previously. And it'll go into a whole nother series of movies that I think are just going to be a ball. Loki, because, man, as Legends bring it up, you start talking about time travel, multiverse, stuff like that. The potential for havoc is massive, right? And I thought they did some neat things with kind of describing how they handled people interacting with the timeline at different points and how it affected things. And I thought that was fun. And this answers a question we see, direct tie-in, from the end of, where was it? Was it Endgame, or did they do it in Loki? I'm trying to remember when we show with the muck up everything. We saw it in Endgame, right? Where Loki, who was supposed to die at the hands of Thanos, at the previous time frame when we were moving around the whole time part of Endgame, trying to get all the Infinity crystals, the gauntlet together from previous time frames and bring them all together for the moment they needed for the snap. When Loki gets hold of the gem he gets and takes off, right? It's like, well, that doesn't tie in with what we just saw. And so this now starts to discuss what happens with that and how that affects the timeline. And I thought they did a really good job tying it in and showing that we could still have Loki exist in a way, even though he should be dead. So that, I thought they did a great job. I love that they got to do the opportunity again, tying in multiverse aspects of multiple, somewhat spoilerish, multiple Lokis. I think people have seen the meme of like all the way down to alligator Loki and such. Won't get into the how's, what's, and doing of it, but the fact that all of those put together, I thought they did a great job. Now, again, for the plot line of what we're going to see, epic, because this opens up the multiverse even further. I agree. Legend talk about the WandaVision, the end of that, and hearing and seeing what they're doing with the moments at the end, because they purposely, right, tying these little bits together that I feel are going to lead into these next movies. We already know that Multiverse of Madness is going to have some WandaVision in it, that Wanda's going to be there, Scarlet Witch, and we're going to see who else shows up. So I feel like we're getting all these hints at where it's going. Loki, it just hits it. And I think personally it sets up who the big baddie is for the next for the whole multiverse piece. I won't spoil that one. I don't know if everyone's seen all of Loki yet. It makes sense, and I've watched some other analysis that puts it in further. I will tell you that I believe the teaser, if you see it, of the weapon, this is in-depth stuff. You have to understand the weapon you see. One of the things that the TVA resets at one of the timelines, just in a field, there's a weapon sitting in the grass there in the field. That is a known weapon from a specific villain through the comic universe in Marvel. And they interact with him in the show, where I think the last person that Loki is essentially interacting with, that's talking about what they're going to do to finish up the storyline, is who our big baddie is going to be. I think they basically described that enough times to say that's where it's going to go next. We'll just have to see how they introduce it in the movies. And again, I think it gives us all the background we need to accept what's likely going to be a web of back and forth with characters. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see dead characters come back to life. Not in the sense to come back to life, but come over from different multiverse versions. It opens up the possibility, I hope, of seeing, like we've already heard rumors of, the multiple Spider-Mans. Let's bring it all together. Like in WandaVision, where we got the version of Quicksilver from the Sony versions of the characters versus the Disney and such, how they did little teaser tie-over stuff. I think this opens up the opportunity for them to bring all of that. It gives us the opportunity for them to bring in mutants to be a real thing in the universe. They could cross over from another version of a multiverse, since they couldn't have it prior because that was all IP that was owned by, I believe, Sony in that case. Fox was Spider-Man, Sony was Fantastic Four and all those. And so we're going to start seeing that blend over. I think that should be really, really cool. Yes, Legend, just like that, having Gamora come over from a different version, right? That shows us, again, the potential that we're going to have to bring any character you want back. That is so comic book, it's not even funny. Like, you can kill off anybody and somehow you can bring them back. So that is just comic books. But we're going to see that, and hopefully they do it in a smart way. And so I'm really excited for where we're going to see the MCU continue. I know there's a lot of people that have fatigue. I'm not one of them. The one criticism I'll have of Loki is that I feel like the primary Loki that we follow through the movies got severely nerfed going into this television series. Like, it was one thing that, yes, he's a trickster, magic, and manipulate things like that. But even though all those are things, and he was never as powerful as Thor, so compared to the other Asgardians, Loki didn't have the physicality of the others. He's no slouch. And I was bugged by how often he fought what essentially are just regular people and wasn't crushing them in the Loki television series. And I say this because, yes, compared to, and this is one of those challenges people keep running into, the scale of powers and stuff that the MCU has. I know people who can't stand watching traditional humans go against God characters and stuff like that. You know, Civil War had a big aspect of that, and they paired off accordingly, thankfully. But Loki is, from many considerations, a demigod kind of thing from the power scale. Not too super powerful, but he took the ape beating from Hulk without dying. You know, he took the whole stupid god thing and bam, 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 in one of the most visceral scenes we've ever had of Hulk violence. And yes, he was crushed into the ground and wasn't feeling it. And it wasn't like he was a spring chicken jumping up and like, nah, I'm good. But he took that. And so all of the fight scenes I watched, unless it was against other powerful characters, which the majority of the TVA are not, all of the TVA, bothered me. Because then it became, I am just a regular, everyday dude claiming to be a god but getting beat up and smacked around by these others. That should never have happened. Even with, because they talk about like the rules of the TVA and how things worked, how he couldn't cast magic and such. Fine. But his physicality should have still been off the hook, right? Unless, okay, Legend, you got a point there. Is it a result of his magic? If that were the case, then yes, that would work in the way they designed what happened at the TVA. That would absolutely work. I can't say that I ever saw something called out to describe that, which would have made it more palpable for me and probably would have made me not even question it. If I had seen the scene where it wasn't just him saying I can't cast magic, but somehow tied it more directly to his general strength and invulnerability type stuff because of the magic, if someone had said like, yeah, you don't have magic to keep you safe anymore, you're not invulnerable, it's just something, I probably would have been like, done, got it, cool, I'm happy with that, we're all right. But I didn't get that, so maybe I missed something or whatever, but that's probably my biggest criticism about it, because we see it later when he is able to cast magic again, he starts to ramp up again. So I accept Legend, that might be the correct answer. I just wish they had maybe made that piece a little more dumb for the average layman. That would have made me happier to accept it. So yes, I agree. Yeah, Ionis. Very different in how you'd have to accept the force being provided. I agree. Anyhow, so I liked Loki. I think it sets us up, and I'm excited to see the next. And that leads us in. So now I want to talk Black Widow. I enjoyed the heck out of Black Widow. It was initially a concern because it's like, where in the timeline are they throwing this? I thought it was going to be this way early prequel, and I was going to say that I don't think would have worked well. I like that instead they gave us a more solid, legit like backstory, the Widow program, all of this stuff, and where it worked. And in fact, her beginnings, and I really jived with what they did in the story they did of young Natasha in the U.S. and her role there and how it was all put together. That was like gold to me because it fits in reality, timeline-wise, with a lot of what politics and stuff have done in the U.S. and other countries. And the idea that there were spies throughout and that essentially her entire life was spy work, I really appreciate it, and helps tell the story of who she is as a character and why her redemption and things later in life make more sense. As well as if it wasn't like one of the best introduction of a whole series of new characters together with her family essentially all together and how they interacted and what their capabilities were. I don't know what else is. That to me was golden and entertainment, fun. There's a piece there where I don't know if the Black Widow movie does a whole lot else to tie in with what else we might be seeing in series, television, or movie. But as a almost standalone product, I think it was phenomenal and just a hoot and a lot of fun, worth seeing on a big screen. I really enjoyed. There is hope that some of the characters we may see again in some form. I would love to see Harbor's character somewhere again. The role he pulled off and just the humor that came along with just him playing the character, I was down for. Even how cold in many ways he was about things, or one-dimensional, because I think it just fit his character so well. And he acted it amazing. I thought they all did a really good job with that. So it'd be curious to see, because we also get a potential of, again, entities that could exist into the further MCU storylines. I don't know if we will. Like, I have a lot of doubt that we're going to see anything from Black Widow come out elsewhere, but we may. That would make me happy, though. And unless, unfortunately, we get like a multiverse version of Natasha, I don't see ScarJo's character continuing on much, because we know she died, right? But they could do it again. Like I said, every character can come back. That's a multiverse, but we'll see. All right. A quick follow-on from that to talk about how things will extend out, right, is like I said, we're getting movie-wise Shang-Chi coming up. It says September of this year. I'm cool with that. I'll be curious. It's, how they do another martial arts-esque focused movie will be curious, since of what they did in the television series with the Defenders and with Iron Fist, which I didn't hate as much as many people. First season was kind of garbage. Later Iron Fist was getting much better. I'll be really curious to see what previews I've seen. I'm curious and I like. Eternals, similar. I didn't ever read Eternals, so it's kind of new to me. Check that. I've loved everything they've done with Spider-Man, so No Way Home. I'm curious. Like I said, Doctor Strange is probably going to be the one goes off the hook. That's going to be this is what's happening next. Seeing promo stuff from Thor, Love and Thunder. What is it? Everyone involved with that looks like they are going over the top in just the look and feel of it. There's discussions saying that Thor is even more humorous in this movie than previous. I like the humor side that Thor was able to do in the previous movie. I thought that was a nice change from other movies and look forward to more of them. So if that becomes kind of between that and future Guardians of the Galaxy's movies, I'm okay with that. If that's kind of where they go with some funny stuff, we'll see. I am surprised I don't see on the roadmap the next Guardians movie, considering that the end of Endgame, right, we had Thor with the Guardians as they headed out. And so we'll have to see how that changes, where they break apart. Then we've got the next Black Panther movie, which, there's so much to be wondering what happens with that. We get the Marvels coming out, November of next year? And then time forward from that, the next Blade, which I'm very much looking forward to. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, sorry. That I feel like is going to be another one that ties into the multiverse, but from the subatomic perspective. That will be curious. Oh, good to hear, Mika, that the next Guardians is finished wrapping. I don't see it on their official timeline yet. And then what'll be really curious, and there's no date on it or anything, is Fantastic Four. They need to reboot that damn thing. They need it better, please. I really want a good Doctor Doom done eventually. I really do. He was such a good villain back in the day. So we'll see. Yeah, no, you're right, Legend. I've heard where several of the actors, because this is one of the challenges, right? We go through the years, right? And we go all the way back. Same thing with, like, Tony Stark, right? That with Robert Downey. That movie came out in 2008. Iron Man, right? We are 13 years later. They've been playing these roles for a minute, and like with Batista and stuff like that, there's not everybody can keep up the physicality. So we'll see. But I am hopeful. I don't know if I'm hopeful. I want a good Fantastic Four movie to come out. I don't know. They're not my favorite characters by any means. I think some of their villains are some of my favorite characters. I love Silver Surfer. I always loved Galactus. So there's reasons I want them to come more prominent, but we'll see. So for me, and like I said, I'm probably different than quite a few people out there. I am still generally on the hype train for Marvel. And I have been quite happy with what they've come out with so far and continue to. I look forward to the What If series. I think that should be an interesting hoot. I used to read those comics a lot and enjoyed the heck out of them. And so I look forward to that. We'll see what else comes out. There's rumors that they've introduced enough characters that we could get essentially a... What is it? In fact, I'm looking back at the series, the television series list, because we have Miss Marvel coming out, then Hawkeye, She-Hulk, Moon Knight. I'm actually really looking forward to Moon Knight. Seeing some of who's playing it and how that's playing will be interesting because he's insane. And then what's interesting, I don't know enough about Secret Invasion. I'll have to maybe click on that one. Ironheart, Armor Wars, then the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. That I still don't know what to think about. And I Am Groot, I still don't know what to think about as series. Those ones just hit me with like, I don't know yet. I don't have opinions yet. I don't know. But let's see. Secret Invasion. Do they have anything on this? Not really. Overview, Disney Plus, Samuel L. Jackson, and Ben Mendelsohn. That's what we know so far. I feel like just by name alone, Secret Invasion speaks to Secret Wars and stuff like that. Speaks to, but I don't know. That one's a little still up in the air for me. But yeah, no, the What If series I'm looking forward to heavily because I used to read all those and just the nice, pinnacle question of and to get a good introduction from the Watcher, right? Another character I've always loved has been the Watcher, and just how the stories they've been able to tell around him. So I look forward to what they might do with the What If series beyond that. So I think that's about all I got to say about those things. Hopefully, this was still somewhat entertaining, even though I tried desperately not to spoil anything. Nothing major. I know these could always be better if we get into it and just give it all up, right? Might as well and just go nuts. There's rumors coming out too that we'll see some of these other, like, not directly MCU, Marvel, Disney controlled characters coming back in some form. We've heard, we know that there's going to be another Punisher coming forward at some point. We've heard little bits that who else was possibly, like, there's hints even in Loki. There was a scene that could speak to Agent Carter coming back. For people who caught that little quick potential, it wasn't truly an Easter egg, potential. Someone that looked like Carter. I need to actually watch Cloak and Dagger. I still haven't, see if that did well. Daredevil, there's rumor, or I think it was confirmed in some way, that the main actor from Daredevil will be seen again. So, like, we've got these little tidbits of other stuff that, admittedly, they could bring anything they want back in. I hope they're brave enough, essentially, too, because one of my biggest complaints about what they were doing on Netflix with those shows is not directly bringing them back and tying them into the MCU with the movies. I thought, because that goes all the way back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where I feel like they missed so much an opportunity with making that a little more tied direct together of things, but I think they could, right? We've had little crossovers back and forth. I really want to see those characters all kind of make their way onto the big screen and to be a useful part of it. That, I think, would be epic. So yeah, I think that's all I got for both of those. Anything else? Am I missing something else that needs to be important and brought up about what Disney Marvel is doing and what we can hope to see? I am really curious to see what they do with She-Hulk. I hope she is truly green. Do it how you need. I don't know who they cast as that yet. See, as I look in there, directors, network, head writer, cast. Is it Tatiana Maslany? I'm assuming that would be She-Hulk. And they have, of course, Mark in there for Hulk. Yeah, I think that's who they're doing. So that could be, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they come out with. No idea how they're going to play it. But I know a lot of friends of mine, that is one of their favorite characters of all time. So curious to see. And then, yeah, I wasn't going to bring up directly, Legend, that they mentioned a season 2 of Loki. Because I'm kind of curious how that'll be. That, to me, speaks a little bit that we may or may not see Loki in the movies again. That's the part I'm kind of curious about, whether with a season 2, will Loki be in the movies in some form, or is he not, and we're just going to get another television series version? That's kind of one of my concerns all the way across, is with any of these, because I think they said, did we hear if there's a second season for WandaVision at all? Because in a way, I don't feel like we need one, as much as I appreciated what they did with it, because it would be a whole different view. So yeah, that's what I'm curious. And you got a good point there, Legend. At what point do the movies and the series become completely reliant on each other? Because right now they're bonus, and I feel like they've done a masterful job of making the movies not rely on the series to be able to make sense and still do stuff. But I think they add so much additional flavor, growth, and things to it that they're super valuable. But is there going to be a point at which you can't watch one without the other? In some way, I think all the series are there. If you watch any of these series having not seen the movies, you're kind of missing out. I mean, it'd be a little tough for you to really care about or understand any of the characters, especially any of the inside references. So, but it's whether or not a movie will ever be reliant upon the series to really understand it. That'd be interesting. And so, yeah, that's the piece where I'm like, not sure what they're doing there. I like also that it feels like their endgame, not to be a pun in that essentially, but the way they're going to play out the future of the MCU is still going hard. Again, all these people are like, I'm tired of it. I think they're simple. They don't understand the depth that really these things can provide. I had a person I heard talk about the last episode of Loki around me who mentioned that they thought it was a terrible episode and end of the season. That they were really disappointed with it, and so I had heard that prior to watching it. And then when I went in and actually watched the last episode, I think I could see how people who are less comic book geek, less focused, could not gain as much value from the way they ended the season as people who are a little more in-depth nerd or people who have been watching some of the discussion around all the Easter eggs and what they potentially mean. Because when I watched it, I followed it like, yep, I got you. I know exactly where this is headed next, and I'm in. I got it down. And so for me, it wasn't as jarring. I wasn't sitting there like, I don't get it. And, oh, that kind of sucked. I was hoping for more of this or that, right? I didn't get any of that. I got like, oh, how's this going to play out? Okay. What are you going to do? What are you going to... And when it all hit, I was like, interesting. All right. And then again, watching all the way through the little end credits to hear about season 2 kind of thing, like, cool. I like where this could be going. So I got a lot out of it, and I can understand to a degree why others may not. So anyhow, as it is the top of the hour, feel free to keep chatting in, and I will respond as we have a few minutes here. But I want to throw out no guarantee on when we will come back again for a regular episode. I say this because we had some conversation and there's enough going on behind the scenes that I'm not at privy to discuss at the moment. Nothing horrible, just busy and life, and hopefully all great with all of us hosts, that we may not be all back, large 3 of us together next week or potentially the week after or something. So we'll see. My hope is to keep having something come on, even if it's a solo show, me just coming up here and pontificating about whatever the heck I have in mind. But we hope to do a bigger announcement because the next official show with all of us together should be our 500th episode. And our initial thoughts on that was to just kind of crack some drinks, have a fun conversation, reminisce, chat, things like that. Opportunity for people who maybe want to call into the show and have a few words, talk, say what they will to us as hosts, as well as look back on however many years now we've been doing this, as well as especially like emails in. Ionis, you are always welcome to come in. And I chuckle because your little spots you've done with your voice and your editing and stuff, I think everybody has appreciated. So I don't know. I make it a constant like battle / challenge for me to go through some of your walls of text without it taking up that rest of the show. So I don't know if I'd leave it back on you to be able to usurp that control I have. But you're still welcome to give us walls of text. Anyhow. But yeah, I'm not sure when we'll be back at full strength, when we'll do our 500th. We'll try to announce something on social media prior to it, such that, but even now, feel free to start, if you have some thoughts, things you'd like to share, email us in, vtwshowx@gmail.com, and we'll hold on to those, just label it 500th episode, and we will wait for those to come up for when we actually do schedule the show. So we'll see when and where we can get that in. All right. Legend's last comment there about, let's see. God, I hope it's not the downfall of the MCU. Right? I agree. I actually appreciate that it feels like Disney Marvel is taking more risk with the storytelling to keep it closer to the comics and do more elements from the comics. And it doesn't feel to me like they are sacrificing nearly as much for the movie and for the non-educated audience. Where I still think they're doing the masterful thing of being able to make a movie that regular plebeians can enjoy, your muggles of the world, can enjoy without having to be comic book experts, but they're not dumbing it down in such a way that it's not true to the character's idea or comics, even though everything's tweaked a bit from what any specific comic line has been with the MCU. So I think they're doing good. I hope they continue to do it. We'll see. And then Legend following up saying, hey, I have a book coming out. I could definitely come on for a guest spot. That is true. In fact, that reminds me, I have a few people that I've lined up for the time that I need to have guested on. So I need to look at some of those. Oh, man, you're going to make some of my things tough. That's right. I need to do some of those. So I may need to reach out and schedule because I've always had where it seems like people, y'all like our our guest shows when we bring on whomever that is out there that's not just us. So I have to look into that again. All right, it's time for me to get out of here. I may jump in Discord for a moment, but I need to be outside in the sun trying to cut down a stump that's sitting out there to do my own household things so I can not get any additional fines on my HOA because, yay, people without, retired people telling everyone the standard of how they need to maintain everything. So, grr. I have to do that a little bit today, so I can't hang out and just enjoy like video games and shows all day. All right, but with that, if you'd like to interact with the show, check us out at vtwshowx@gmail.com, as well as check out our link tree. It is link.r.ee, I always forget that piece, /showx. But if you check us out there, you can get all the deets and let us know all your thoughts. Catch us on any of our various social medias and stuff like that. It's linktr.ee/showx for our link tree for all the links. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a good start to your week. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll all be around for this. We'll see. All right. But with that, I'm out of here. Have a good one, everyone. Bye. Let me hit all the good buttons here. This one. Oh, do we have Hando here? No. All right. We'll do this one.
Goodbye. See you in the next zombie. Good night. I forgot.
All right, everybody. You have a good one. Bye.